Welcome to Magic Arcanum. I'm Ryan Gomez. Behind the scenes is Nicole Burdick, and we're so glad you're here because it's story time. And it's a very special story time because we have yet another episode of Story Beats, where I take one of the official story decks, as provided by Wizards of the Coast, and put it through its paces on Magic Arena. So yeah, this is like a really cool thing that they do now, where they publish a bunch of house-made deck lists. And it reminds me of the old starter and theme decks that I used to play with growing up. They gave us 15 of these decks for Wilds of Eldraine, and they cover every possible strategy, and most of them are pretty budget-friendly, but we are trying to answer the question, are they any good? Today, we're looking at Bad Apprenticeship, a red and blue deck that features Johann, an apprentice sorcerer, who is trying to clean up the mess he made while trying to clean up a mess. Here is the official description. Between studying spells, sorting the library, and cleaning the tower, being a sorcerer's apprentice is hard work. It has become harder for Johann. What started as a great way to finish his chores early has spiraled into a tower full of chaotic, destructive elementals. Bad Apprenticeship works with the many ways to give your creatures the sorcerer role, helping you control what card is on top of your library and allowing you to cast powerful instants and sorceries with Johann and the bargain mechanic. So that's the game plan. Let's take a look at the deck list. The notable cards here are Johann, Apprentice Sorcerer, a legendary human wizard that lets us look at the top of our library, and once each turn we can cast an instant or sorcery from there. Scalding Viper, an elemental snake with an adventure that lets us return a non-land permanent to its owner's hand. And the Apprentice's Folly, which is really cool. We finally have a deck built around a saga. The idea here is to use the saga to make copies of our creatures and then sacrifice the saga itself to a bargain before we have to do its third verse, which would make us sacrifice all of the reflection clones that we've created. It is a very unstable game plan, I have to say, but I do like a lot of the subtle synergies that they have here. The sorcery rolls in particular are going to be very important because scrying on our attack will let us potentially change the top card of our deck, which could help us find something extra that we could cast with Johann. Now remember, this is a budget deck and it was built to show off the red and blue draft archetype for Wilds of Eldraine. So that means we've only got a handful of rares and no mythics in here this time, but honestly, this looks like one of the tighter lists that they supplied. And if you want to see the other 14 that they've got in this series, I have the link down below. So can we help Johann mop up the tower and then mop up our opponents? Let's find out in today's Story Beats. All right, here we go. First game with Bad Apprenticeship. We've got lands for both colors, some cheap stuff to play. I think we keep it. Let's see if we can make this work. We're going to open with a mountain so that our Torch the Tower is already live. Our opponent has a tapped land and a good attitude. You'll love to see it. All right, turn 2. I think we're going to play our Aquatic Alchemist. So this is a elemental, has an adventure side to it, but we're not going to save that. So this guy says whenever you cast your first instant or sorcery spell each turn, he gets +2/+0 until end of turn. So it can become really like a 2-mana 3/3 under the right circumstances. And our opponent has the 1/3 Kappa Tech Wrecker Death Touch Ninja Turtle with 3 toughness. So our Torch the Tower doesn't quite get there. It only does 2 damage. We could combine it with Frolicking Familiar's Blow Off Steam. I guess that's worth doing. It's not like we have anything else really going on here. I mean, it always feels bad to use 2 cards to kill 1 card, but technically the adventure part we get back, so that doesn't really put us down a card. And so now next turn we're probably going to have to quick study to try and find a land, unless we get one off the top, which we do. Okay. So I think I like just attacking here. And then following that up with our Johann, the face card of this deck. Oh, it gets countered, never mind. All right, so Johann doesn't appear in the Wilds of Eldraine story at all. He's really in the set to kind of represent the classic fairy tale of the Sorcerer's Apprentice. And if you don't remember that one, it's okay. It's kind of a more obscure story. But basically, there is a famous sorcerer who takes on a young apprentice and makes that student perform a bunch of chores before or after one of their lessons together. And the student figures, well, hey, I'm here to learn magic, so instead of cleaning these floors myself, why don't I just enchant these brooms or make the water buckets carry themselves or whatever. And because they're still not very good at their magic, they make a bunch of mistakes, and the water goes everywhere, and the buckets start dumping out, and the brooms, kind of start clogging up the place, and it just gets to be really silly. And then the young apprentice has to now spend more time and effort cleaning up their mess rather than, getting out of work early. So it's kind of like a cautionary tale about having a good work ethic, and that's it. That's the Sorcerer's Apprentice in a nutshell. So that's what this deck is trying to do. We've got Johann and all these elementals kind of running rampant in this Sorcerer's Tower, and he's trying to get things back under control after mistakenly trying to make life easier for himself, and he only made it harder. It's a cool story. I like that they managed to fit it into Wilds of Eldraine, the set, even if it doesn't affect Rowan and Will and the Enchanted Sleep or any of that. It's fun to have these little side paths here. So our opponent is doing some blue and green stuff. We've got Moonsnare Specialist here. It's going to return a creature. They're sending our Frolicking Familiar back. I am happy with that because now we can use it to blow off steam. Let's see if they actually attack first. They don't. All right, so we're going to end step just kill this Death Bonnet Sprout before it can grow any bigger. And now we find Johann. So let's see if there's anything cool on the top of our deck. It is a Living Lectern, which we can't actually play. We'll just get our familiar back. And opponent can make extra mana. And they have a ninja that did its effect to return our creature to our hand already. So, alright, nighttime falls because they played nothing, so their werewolf is now a little bigger. And we can play the adventure half of this alchemist, which will put an instant or sorcery from our graveyard on top of our library. And, that's cool because it kind of works with Johann. Except that this will be the first one we play off the top, so it doesn't really work with Johann, but we got a way to make this work. We're going to use that ability. That's going to pump up our dudes. We're going to drop Living Lectern, if our opponent lets us get away with it. Okay, and then we can use Living Lectern's ability to turn our Frolicking Familiar into a sorcerer. It's going to put a roll on that, so it'll become a 4/4. And we get to draw Torch the Tower. Cool. So now I think we actually just attack with the Familiar here. I'm fine leaving that other torch on top. We're not going to get to use it this turn. But we do get to hit our opponent for 4. And so Johann's ability lets us cast... Oh my gosh, Hullbreaker Horror. Oh no. Lets us cast off the top once per turn, and that should include our opponent's turn. So we could still use this torch here. In fact, I think I'm going to do it right now, and I can even bargain because I'm going to give up the sorcerer roll that is about to get bounced from this Hullbreaker anyway. And I think I'm okay getting another Frolicking Familiar on the top. That'll be a good draw for next turn. Opponent resolves their Teferi and creates a 2/2 Spirit. Alright, we're at 19 life. If they attack with this Hullbreaker, I think we're just taking it. Yeah, no blocks on that. Alright. So I think step 1 is to try and kill the spirit. And then we could double blow off steam to get rid of this guy, or we could just kill Teferi. I think I want to get rid of Teferi.
Who taught you your manners? Mind is willing, but the body, it hurts.
And honestly, I even like doing water wings because it turns this into a 4/4, but it still gets the +2. So now that's going to hit for 6 and put our opponent to 3. Unless they're going to not block and go to 1. In which case, I guess we should have held on to our Frolicking Familiar. Alright, opponent goes to 1. They do have Hullbreak Horror, which could potentially bounce a lot of our board, but they don't want to bounce this Familiar, because then we get to just kill them with it. And if they attack, I'm certainly not blocking here. I want to keep as many attackers as I've got, and they don't have lethal on us yet. Alright, Glorious Sunrise is a small problem, because I guess they can use the gain 3 life mode. Yeah, there you go. Alright. So we pick up Lectern, and we pick up Aquatic Alchemist, which, again, we can use to put something on top of our deck, but we won't be able to cast it, because we've already cast something off the top of our deck if we use that. So what is the play here? Well, I guess we can use the Lectern. Find a land. Alright, so I guess at this point we just want to kind of go as wide as possible and try to get around Hullbreaker. So I'm okay taking a turn to kind of widen out my board. Now we can chump block Hullbreaker if we need to, but they're probably keeping it back to block, and they're just going to gain 3 more life off of this Sunrise. But they're down to just 2 cards in hand. So it's not like they can pop off a bunch of spells and bounce our whole board here. So opponent is casting Symmetry Matrix. When a creature with power equal to its toughness enters the battlefield under your control, you can pay 1. That's an interesting inclusion in a deck that runs a 7/8, but you do you, opponent. Alright. We drew Johann's Stopgap. Return target non-land permanent to its owner's hand. So we could just get Hullbreaker out of here. I mean, I guess that's good, right? Do we cast it with the bargain to make it cheaper? I guess we do, because we don't really need the scry. Alright, so now I think we've got them, because even if they block a 3, we've got 2 more points of damage here with our familiars, and they recognize the math. They fall to 2. We blow off some steam. Give them the old good game, and it looks like our first game with Bad Apprenticeship didn't go so bad. Let's see if we can do it again. Alright, game 2 with Bad Apprenticeship. We've got both of our colors, some early interaction, some way to draw cards. I think we can keep this. We'll start off with that Restless Spire since it comes in tapped. I do like this land cycle from this set. Having creature lands in standard always kind of mixes things up in a good way, I think, and gives you something to do against a control deck that just picks off your whole board or whatever. So I like them. I like that this one also has, when it attacks, you get to scry. That works great with Johann, so hopefully we get to show that off at some point. Opponent has Streetwise Negotiator, a 1/3 that deals combat damage equal to its toughness rather than its power. Interesting. Well, guess we're just going to pass here. I think if we attacked, they probably wouldn't block. If they attack into us, we might use water wings to eat this guy. Maybe we won't get a chance to. Alright, so their invasion. They get to look at our hand, exile something, and put a tax on it. Which isn't too bad for us. Most of our stuff's pretty cheap. If they take away quick study, that's probably going to hurt us the most because I might be using that to draw cards here to try to find lands. But they take away one of the torched towers. We can still actually cast it, though. And they go in with their Streetwise Negotiator. Okay, so even though they know we're holding Water Wings here... So unless they've got, like, Tamio's Protection or Tyvar's Stand or something. I think we get to block and eat this guy, which would be great. But you gotta respect one open green mana, I guess. Okay, it is Tyvar's Stand. Alright, so that just makes it indestructible, so we just bounce off each other. Very interesting use of resources there from the opponent. We didn't find a fourth land. And we don't have anything to really bargain with, so I guess we're going to just fire off quick study here. Alright. Yeah, I'm going to not attack. I really don't want the opponent to get a clean hit on this invasion. We'll make them go through our Alchemist. They know half the cards in our hand. They don't know we're holding 2 Johanns. Alright, so they're going to take the swing at the invasion. I think we chump block here with our Alchemist. And opponent has Elspeth. Okay. Alright, I was really hoping to find another land so that we could maybe play Johann and Torch. Or this guy and blow off Steam to get rid of this token. Anything really. I guess getting Johann down is still alright here. 2-5, he's got a nice booty. He can absorb the Streetwise Negotiator pretty well. Opponent has 2 Elspeths. Okay, well, our budget deck is just going to have to work that much harder. They get to crack the invasion here if they want to. Yeah. Still not finding lands. Is it worth quick study here? I mean, I guess it is. We're going to fall so far behind if we don't start multi-spelling. Alright, are either of these about to, like, ultimate? Not really. I mean, this one could. Return all non-land permanents with mana value 3 or less from your graveyard. They don't have any. So I think we just nuke one of these tokens. And no attacks, so I don't know, this guy is basically like a Baneslayer Angel at this point, like a 5/5. Oh, and then they have an actual angel. Okay. This is a cool deck, opponent. Green, white, I guess there is red in here, so it's like a Naya token, maybe, kind of theme. Streetwise Negotiator, not a card I see played very often, but it's doing quality work here. We're about to get hit for a ton. They're going to gain more life. Yeah. Alright, well, we found another land, but it's not really the color I was hoping for, so... So even if we torch here, that doesn't really get us anywhere. It's only going to do two damage. I guess we could have used the firebolt to kill this Valkyrie. Or to kill the negotiator. I'm not sure which of these is more dangerous at this point. Alright, so that's what the red is for. Mirror Shield Hoplite. Whenever a creature you control becomes the target of a backup ability, copy that ability. So it's a backup deck? I've never seen a deck like this. Okay, and then... Well, they just give me Death Touch and counters to a bunch of people? Oh my gosh. Alright, opponent, you definitely have one of the more interesting decks I have seen on Arena as of late. This is pretty cool. It's gonna kill us, but it is pretty cool. Okay, an impressive display from Elspeth and Elspeth. Let's see if Johann can clean up the mess in Game 3. Alright, one more time, scrubbing floors and doing chores. We've got our lands, we've got some action. Let's keep it. I like this alchemist. He's cool. He's got like the cauldron on his head as a hat. And he's a pretty good turn 2 play. Like, I don't mind putting down a 1-3 that could potentially get much bigger when we attack next turn. Opponent on red and black. Lord of the Rings lands here. Very cool. They're going to make us sacrifice our poor elemental. So sad. Alright, so do we just run out the familiar then? I think we do. And next turn, we've even got the lands to do Johann. Opponent just has another Shieldred's Edict. Okay. Well, I would rather they spend it on that than on our face card. So hopefully Johann sticks around long enough to make use of whatever's on top of our library after we draw this splashy spellcaster. Opponent with Chandra. Alright. They bring in planeswalkers to the battle here. We have no such cards in our deck. Who needs planeswalkers? Alright, top card is Aquatic Alchemist. Technically we can put an instant or sorcery from our graveyard on top, but we don't have any, so that's not happening. And Frantic Firebolt only works on creatures, so we can't use that against Chandra. So I guess we just attack her.
That's it. I'm done playing.
And then do we want to play Splashy Spellcaster to give us some insurance against another Edict? I guess. Could make a case for keeping up the Frantic Firebolt in case they actually play a creature of their own. Doesn't seem like a very creature-heavy deck between the Planeswalkers and the removal spells, though. Alright, opponent uses their Chandra to exile the top card of their library. If it's red, they can cast it. It is all will be one. Interesting. Whenever you put one or more counters on a permanent or player, all will be one deals that much damage to target opponent, creature an opponent controls, or Planeswalker. Okay. So we have Frantic Firebolt on top. That doesn't really help us. We could use Stopgap to get all be one back to their hand. I mean, I guess that's all right. Maybe it slows them down, or at least forces them to recast it. Now we can kill Chandra, even. And we get to scry. I don't think we want water wings. Guess I'm okay picking up an island next turn. Alright, so we've cleared opponent's board. They could spend 5 mana to play their enchantment again and not do anything with it this turn. It's fine by me. I love it when they spend 5 mana on a do-nothing enchantment. Alright, these firebolts are pretty much useless. We've got a Frolicking Familiar. I think what we do here is actually play the Alchemist. Deal 1 damage with Blow Off Steam. Our spellcaster gets to stick a sorcerer roll on the Alchemist. We get to attack. We get to scry. I think we'll keep Quick Study there. Opponent to 13 now, and our board is getting pretty sizable. I mean, this is what Johann wants to do. We've got elementals of all sorts popping off here. We've got cards stacked on top of our library waiting to be cast. If we can just dodge like a board wipe, I think we'll be in good shape. I gotta say, these Frantic Firebolts, however, not super useful. The fact that they care so much about our graveyard, they're really expensive. They got Johann in the art, though, so I guess that's why they're in the deck. But these are probably something I would replace with, like, Lightning Strike. Alright, opponent has another Chandra.
I'll light your way.
It enters with 3 loyalty on it, so all will be 1 gets to deal 3 damage. That's not really enough. I mean, they can put it on our face, or they can kill our Frolicking Familiar. And now they gotta decide what else they're doing with their turn. They tick Chandra up, so all will be 1 does another damage. Okay.
Watch me heat up the dance floor.
5 mana to work with now. And they use it for a Shivan Devastator, which comes in with 4 counters. Okay. This is an interesting build. Definitely getting a lot of value out of all will be 1 here. Alright, and they swing away. So we're gonna do a Firebolt off the top to get rid of this Devastator. I guess we want to kill Chandra. Ditch that mountain.
Wow, not even a gift bag.
I guess we could have used Quick Study to try and find another land. But I'm okay holding it up. So they have Godric. Interesting inclusion. He doesn't really have much to do with counters. And they're gonna go for the throat me. Okay. We lose Johann. Do they attack with their hasty 3/3? Boy, they are being very aggressive for somebody with no cards left in hand. Alright, so we've got an island, we've got Firebolt to deal with Godric. I guess we can just hold on to that for right now. This way, if they draw like a second one, they can't play them both until after combat. Really frustrating only having one mountain, and we have all these like burn spells that only work on creatures. Okay, opponent with Vraska. Jeez. So we're gonna just kill Godric now, I guess. Vraska's gonna come in with what, like 9 counters on her? 6 counters on her. Well, Obi-Wan gets to deal 6 to our face. Oh my gosh. And then... okay. Vraska draws a card. Oh, proliferate still counts. It still adds a counter, so they get to deal 1 more damage. We're down to 3. Man, I really wish these firebolts worked on planeswalkers. And then their invasion comes in with 4 counters on it, and they get to deal. Wow, what a impressive deck, I gotta say. That was a pretty close game. I was feeling really good there towards the middle. Unfortunately, Johann's mess was just too big for him to clean up. So let's take one last look at the deck, talk about some suggested upgrades, and see what we can do from there. Alright, so Johann and his bad apprenticeship. I like this deck. The games, for the most part, felt pretty close. As I said in the beginning, it's a pretty tight list. There's not a ton of room for upgrades, especially if you're sticking just with the Eldraine cards. So if you're willing to go outside of that, we've got some other options. But the one from Eldraine that you could maybe find home for would be Stone Splitter Bolt. It features Rowan in the art, but it does have the bargain mechanic, and this deck can make tokens, mostly the sorcerer rolls, but we've got some other stuff here that you could feed into this. We never did get to pull off the Apprentice's Folly Saga trick, but that would be another card that you would definitely want to sacrifice to the bargain with Stone Splitter Bolt, excuse me. Outside of that, though, you could look at stuff like Rouse Reinforcements, sorcery that will trigger a bunch of the stuff that cares about instants and sorceries being cast, but it also gives you 2 elemental creature tokens, which kind of fits with the theme, and it gives you more bargain fodder. Lightning Strike is just really good all-around generic damage. It's probably better than Frantic Firebolt, which is really dependent on us having stuff in the graveyard. It also costs 1 less mana, which is, almost always better. And if you really want some cheap interaction, Fading Hope, it's got Scry if you target something that's mana value 3 or less, which can work great with Johann. It gives you a way to kind of reset that top card, maybe find something else that you can cast. You can also use the Fading Hope on some of your own guys. You could pick up your own Frolicking Familiar, so you could blow off more steam, bring back your Scalding Viper, so you could then bounce something else, although I guess you would probably just use the Fading Hope for that. But that's it. There's just maybe a few little tweaks here. I mean, you could probably fit some more dual lands in, but it's not like we have Evolving Wilds or anything in here that's really tripping us up. I like the Restless Spire, and the lands were, for the most part, okay. I mean, we kind of got stuck on colors a little bit there in some of the games. But overall, I think the deck is pretty cool. I'm going to keep tinkering with it, and I would like you guys to do the same. Leave me some comments down below, what you would add, what you'd take out, how you can really make this one effective for Standard, or if you want to really go all out and bring this over to Pioneer or Historic or Alchemy. There's probably all sorts of options there to make this something that you can have fun with. But if you're just looking to spend just a few wild cards and make use of some of the draft chaff you might have picked up from your last Wilds of Eldraine draft, this is probably one of the better decks. I mean, it didn't quite run so hot today, but I still like this list a lot. If you liked it, make sure you like the video and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the great stories you'll only find here on Magic Arcanum. We'll see ya.